All right, so this is chapter 17, the personality and socio-cultural aspects of older adulthood. All right, so again, this is the last stage for Erik Erikson's model of development, the different things that we have to, uh, satisfy or achieve, or the things that we struggle with during these different age categories. And for older adults, it's integrity versus despair. And this is basically after looking back on life. Have we accomplished the things that we want to accomplish? Have we done what we wanted to do? Or at the very least, as maybe our values have changed now that we're older. Have we maintained have we maintained who we are, been true to ourselves, those sorts of things. That would be integrity. And despair, then looking back on life and, have we wasted it? Have we squandered, the time that we've had? And if so, now we're probably feeling despair. And so, some of that is, again, with these stage models, I think for a lot of people, as we get older, we look back with that integrity versus despair, and try to correct the course. But I guess as we get older, we recognize that, our time is very limited now, and so that it becomes a little more real. I guess we can't correct course like we can at earlier stages in life. So that's according to Erikson. And then maintaining identity is also an important part of older adulthood as well. So basically, again, continuing to develop, to grow, to learn, and staying active. Again, maintaining, being true to ourselves, as Shakespeare would say, to thine own self be true. Really is what's important throughout the lifespan, and then also here as well in older adulthood. So there's more satisfaction for interpersonal relationships in older adulthood. For whatever reason, maybe there's more time there to be able to enjoy those relationships or to engage in those relationships. But for whatever reason, they tend to have more satisfaction with those relationships. I think they're also probably a little more in depth as well. Obviously still able to experience emotions. Again, that's kind of a duh factor, of course. Humans at any stage of the lifespan are going to be able to experience emotions. While other things may, be more challenging for older adults in terms of memory, emotional memory seems to remain intact. So those things that, really brought about some emotion, those events, experiences, probably are going to be more memorable for older adults. So here are 6 components of well-being, and again, these are, I don't think these are really specific to older adults. I think they're, really something that we need to pay attention to wherever we are in the lifespan. So self-acceptance, I've talked about that before. I really believe that this is one of those things in life that is of the highest importance, to be able to accept ourselves where we're at. To not see or believe that we need to change anything about ourselves, but just accept ourselves the way that we are. And then paradoxically, once we do that, that then allows room for growth and development. So really, self-acceptance is the key throughout the life. Having good relationships with others. Autonomy, you can probably see how this comes into play for older adults. Not having to be dependent on anybody. I mean, we spend our entire childhood, adolescence gaining autonomy, to where hopefully we achieve it in our adolescence to some extent, and then into emerging adulthood and adulthood, and then that's something that we want to obviously maintain. throughout, even though as we get older, we may, have to become more reliant upon others for things that we're not able to do ourselves just because of the physical limitations of older adulthood. But being able to maintain some sense of autonomy and some autonomy, is really important in terms of our health. Environmental mastery, just being able to manipulate the things around us as we need to. So, cleaning what we want to clean, something, basic. Being able to be mobile and getting around where we need to get around. Maintaining a purpose in life is also important. Some older adults volunteer. They're engaged civically or with the community somehow or with a religious organization. I'll provide opportunities for people to volunteer and to gain some sense of purpose in life. And then finally, personal growth. As I talked about, the youngest, oldest person that I know, staying young and always growing is just really key to life, really, again, at any stage of the lifespan, but definitely including in with older adults as well. There are many different coping styles that take place throughout the lifespan. And that, not all of those, we talked about the defense mechanisms from Freud. Those are going to play into older adulthood as well. And just in general, how a person copes with some of the changes that go on with older adulthood is really going to play a role in terms of their health, both psychological as well as physical. And those components of well-being are going to play a huge role in that as well. So at some point in older adulthood, people are going most likely to retire. So the text talks about six stages of retirement. So there's pre-retirement where they're working toward it, getting close to it, probably making some plans for what they're going to do during retirement. Then retirement happens where they officially kind of step out of their primary career, primary job, and enter into a new phase. So something changes. Maybe they're just cutting back on their work time, partial retirement, or maybe they're switching into a new job that's not going to be as demanding, or something that they've wanted to do but they've not been able to do up to this point. For those that do, stop working altogether, there might be a period of disenchantment where they wonder what to do with themselves. Now, that's probably somewhat stereotypical. Not everybody goes through that stage of, what am I doing? Who am I? What's my identity? And a lot of that is what we talked about before, whether you work to live or live to work. Those that live to work are probably going to feel more of that disenchantment than those that work because you have to pay bills. It's not, maybe you enjoy it, but you'd rather be doing other things. So according to this stage model, once the disenchantment can then turn into reorientation, which is basically either finding something else to do, or just basically adjusting now to not having to get up to go to work every day to that same routine. So then what develops according to this model is a retirement routine where they just get into the routine of what they're going to do, whatever it is. Get up, watch The Price is Right. I don't know. Whatever that routine is, it's obviously going to be very individually based, and to some extent, it's also going to be determined by the health status of the individual as well. And then termination of retirement. That's death, basically, that we'll talk about in the next chapter. So there are different options for retirement. I mentioned, there's a partial retirement where somebody might leave their main career and then move on into something that they've always wanted to do, maybe something that's been more of a hobby, where financially it wouldn't be feasible for them to be able to do, but now that they're retired and receiving retirement benefits, they're able to do this now. And so that might be an option for some, partial retirement. My own dad, in his retirement, has continued to substitute teach schools, in particular elementary school. And so teaching is something that he's always loved to do. And so being in that partial retirement for him has been, wonderful. It's given him something to do, maintaining that purpose, and as well as supplementing the income as well. Some people travel. Some people are able to, like as I said earlier, volunteer at different organizations. So it really, depends on the individual, their circumstances. Financially, where are they? We know that some older individuals who are retired struggle financially. Others have been able to have jobs to where they're well set in retirement. So a lot of that is just what they do is going to depend on their financial stability as well as their health. Is also going to dictate to some extent what they're going to be able to do. So usually at retirement, parenting is over at that point. All of their kids are grown. That's not the case for some. Some older adults are becoming parents either through stepchildren or through having children of their own. Really, again, is going to depend on the individual. As we talked about, though, as we get older, relationships with our parents change to where it becomes a little more like a friend as opposed to a parent. However, that hierarchy still should remain. To a large extent, also how their relationships with their children is going to be really dependent on how their relationship with the child was growing up, and if they're able to kind of work through any issues that may have developed through raising their children. And then grandchildren typically are a source of great fun and joy for grandparents. The old mindset is that you get to have your grandchildren and spoil them and then send them back to their parents. So you get all of the benefits of having children, but not having to deal with some of the more challenging aspects of raising a child. And that is going to depend again to some extent on the family situation. Grandparents raising grandchildren is a phenomenon that's been raising over the past several years, to where it can cause some challenges and hurdles for grandparents and grandchildren, but there are also a lot of benefits to that as well. Just kind of depends on how they're going to handle it. Children that are raised by their grandparents can actually receive a lot of benefits from being raised by their grandparents. Grandparents are obviously at that point pretty experienced at parenting, and so as a result, they have a lot of skills and tools that they can just fall into. Whereas, parenting is it's a skill that you have to learn, and it's not an easy thing at times. So there's, a couple of different aspects of relationships with grandchildren, with the grandparents, but, for the most part, grandparents typically, again, it's going to depend on the individual, but grandparents are typically going to have a pretty warm relationship with their grandchildren. Caring for a spouse who is ill is another aspect that older adults may face. And again, depending on the health of the spouse, they may or may not be able to care for a spouse who's ill. And so that's just going to play that role. So it can be stressful, but it can also be an experience that helps a couple draw closer. One man that I know, his wife had Alzheimer's and was in a care facility. And even though she didn't remember, family or him or anything else, he would show up every day to feed her a meal and to talk and to read to her and to sing to her, just as a way of caring. And it's very touching as we think about that act. But it was really spurred by the relationship that they had built through life and the love that they had for one another, and that he continued to have for his spouse, even though she didn't remember who she was. So he couldn't care for her full time, but he still made sure that he was there every day to take care of her in some aspect. And hopefully, if a couple has been together during this point, they have that type of relationship where they do that. And then finally, widows and widowers. The living arrangement, again, is something usually determined by them and their family, their level of health, and their involvement within their children's lives. If they haven't had any children, then again, those living arrangements can be anywhere from living independently, semi-independently, to being completely dependent in like a nursing home or something. It's important for widows and widowers to have social support. Hopefully their children have not written them off if they have children. If not, it's always nice for volunteers to go into nursing homes and to visit older adults, to be able to give them some socialization with other people. Social support can also come from different living arrangements that they have, which here I'll switch to the next slide. So within nursing homes, a lot of nursing homes have recreational therapists where they engage the residents to interact with each other socially, play bingo, have different dance nights, things like that. Are all options where they can kind of get older adults to socialize. There's also the daycare centers for older adults. It's basically a place where adults can go and socialize with each other. When we lived in Indiana, the senior center up there actually had ballroom dance nights. And my wife and I went to one of those nights to ballroom dance, and we really just had a lot of fun. And they were kind of excited too to see a younger couple, not that we were that young, but a younger couple than them, to dance. And we just had a lot of fun with them. They were very friendly, very open in sharing, helping us learn new steps and things. We really had a good experience there, and that was, a service that the senior center there provided. Most larger areas have senior centers that offer activities for adults to be able to continue developing the social relationships. Being isolated is not good at any stage of the lifespan. And in particular, I think it's easier for older adults to kind of hit that. At least, in a lot of people's minds, it's a lot easier for older adults to be more isolated. And so it's important to be aware of that and to help socialization take place. So that's the, personality, sociocultural aspects of older adulthood. And we'll pick up in the next chapter, the next presentation on the end of life.